Welcome to free audiobooks from Ngân hàng EG Book Review Channel from our Đại Pham. Hope you enjoy all these novels. If you love any books, you can support author by like, share or donate. Thank you.
Audiobooks. Fiction novel, Egypt, The Temptation of the Dream Part 2. And Jean So, the character who guide the story tell. Voiced by Ava from Clipchamp Software. Jean remained impassive, saying nothing. The official continued, now unable to conceal the excitement in his eyes. The ancient Egyptians worshipped gold. If that chamber holds solid gold statues of the gods, standing 2 meters tall, their value could reach billions of dollars. He swallowed hard, imagining massive chunks of gold, statues of Anubis, Ra, Isis, gleaming under the flashlight's glow in the ancient corridor. Both men, one eager, one composed, had no idea to know some things. Jean's discovery would not only shake the world of archaeology, but also upend Egyptian history itself. It was not a mere treasure hoard, though gold and jewels indeed lay within. But they were nothing more than bait, set thousands of years ago, designed for anyone daring enough to open the door. This trap wasn't meant to kill. It was meant to lure in the chosen one. It had been crafted millennia ago by Egypt's highest priests, a perfect lure. Gold, gems, divine statues, every detail carefully arranged to entice one person, the one who was destined. And in this era, that person was Jean. No one, not the Egyptian authorities, nor the world's top archaeologists had ever detected the hidden chamber deep within the Great Pyramid. They had used thermal scans, ground-penetrating radar, the most advanced technology available. But nothing had revealed its existence. Because that stone door did not exist in the physical world. It only appeared when the chosen one activated the right symbol. The eye symbol, a mark, was carved by Jean himself, guided by the cryptic visions from his dreams. He had believed he was simply a fortunate explorer, but in truth, he had been led here by something far older than civilization itself. The entire nation of Egypt was now ablaze with excitement. The media erupted with headlines about the hidden chamber inside the Great Pyramid, previously unknown to history. The government scrambled to assemble an international archaeological team, summoning elite engineers and experts to dismantle ancient traps. For weeks, news outlets buzzed with reports on this earth-shattering archaeological discovery. A hidden chamber inside the Great Pyramid, something no one in centuries had ever uncovered. The Egyptian authorities quickly formed a team of world-renowned specialists from P, A, D, and N. They arrived armed with cutting-edge technology, wall-penetrating radar, seismic scanners, fiber-optic cameras. And Jean, the man who had unlocked the secret, was treated with special privilege. The government covered all his expenses. They even housed him in a private hotel near the excavation site. He was the only person in centuries to have found what the entire world had once deemed impossible. The first strange occurrences quickly began to surface. The ancient traps uncovered by the engineers, far from being the deadly mechanisms of legend, were almost like a joke. A loose brick that made people stumble. A shallow pit that someone could easily climb out of. No poisoned darts. No collapsing ceilings. No sand pits swallowing intruders whole. It's as if the person who designed these traps was just toying with trespassers. A specialist from D muttered as he finished inspecting the third so-called trap he had nearly tripped over. The entire team grew puzzled. What they were witnessing didn't match the grandeur and solemnity of the Great Pyramid. Had they merely stumbled upon a side chamber, not the true one? Chapter 6. Over the next 3 months, experts worked tirelessly, recording and analyzing the hieroglyphs carved into the walls. As they deciphered the inscriptions, a revelation emerged. At the height of its glory, an invaluable treasure was created to honor the gods. Solid gold statues, so massive that dozens of men were needed to move them. All were hidden deep within, beyond the reach of mortal hands. When the translation was read aloud, the meeting room fell into a stunned silence before erupting in excitement. Everyone was certain there had to be another hidden chamber, a place where the true treasure lay. But then, even with state-of-the-art radar scans, no additional hollow spaces were detected. Every suspicious location had been examined. No hidden chamber, no secret doors, no signs of excavation or theft. The stone walls remained intact, undisturbed. Impossible. A specialist from P muttered. The text is clear, yet there's nothing here. Jean stood still before the final stone wall. A strange feeling crept over him. Something was wrong. The treasure was real. That much was certain. But where was it? For 3 months, Jean frequently visited the excavation site, observing and taking notes. Though he had been the first to uncover the mystery, he gradually faded into the background among the prestigious international research team. The strange dreams that had guided him here had also gone silent, as if they had reached their end. As archaeologists began to doubt whether the treasure was anything more than legend, concluding that the inscriptions were merely praises of Egypt's glorious past, the news reached Jean. That evening, he sat alone in his small desert-side lodging, the golden hues of the setting sun casting a glow on the cold walls. A quiet sadness settled within him. No golden statues. No treasure. No reward for the one who had discovered the first clues. The world had been waiting for a miracle, yet in the end, there was nothing. That night, burdened by frustration and disappointment, Jean lay on his bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. And then the dream returned, just at the moment when doubt and unease consumed him. He couldn't tell if it was a dream or a whisper from someone beside him, but the familiar voice echoed once more, like a call from the ancient past. Break the final wall. Jean jolted awake, his heart pounding. That phrase echoed repeatedly in his mind. He suddenly recalled the wall at the end of the corridor, the very last barrier. It bore a nearly eroded inscription, so old that experts had dismissed it as mere decorative stonework. No one had paid attention to it. After months of fruitless searching inside the pyramid, international experts began to accept a disappointing truth. They had found nothing of value beyond a few hieroglyphic passages praising Egypt's golden era and vague references to a treasure. There were no hidden chambers, no golden statues, only dead-end corridors and time-worn walls. As they prepared to conclude the expedition, they encountered Jean near the site. They knew he was the first to discover the secret passage. They spoke with him, sensing that he had learned something new. Some remained skeptical, but still asked if he had any additional insights. Jean led them to the deepest part of the pyramid, pointing at the final wall, a massive stone slab covered in faded inscriptions. His voice was calm, yet firm. Beyond this wall lies the next passage. An archaeologist frowned. How do you know that? Jean smiled sincerely. Last night, the dream returned. It showed me this, just as it did before. The atmosphere grew heavy. Skepticism lingered, but no one dared to dismiss Jean. It was his dreams that had led them here. Jean remained silent. He had no proof, no map, no scientific data to support his claim. Only a dream. At that moment, an Egyptian official spoke, his voice grave. Whatever lies behind this wall, it is still a national monument, a piece of history. This wall is part of the pyramid. It can be preserved, exhibited, and used for tourism. Who would authorize the destruction of something thousands of years old for a dream? Tension filled the air. Jean did not argue, but his gaze remained fixed on the wall, as if listening to an invisible call. The experts were divided. Some supported breaking the wall to verify the truth. Others feared the irreversible destruction of a historical artifact. The debate grew heated, yet no one dared to make the final decision. Beyond that wall could be an empty space or a secret that would shake human history. Jean knew only one thing. Dreams never appeared without reason. A crisis meeting was urgently convened in Cairo, gathering high-ranking officials, renowned scholars, and representatives from the Ministry of Heritage. The discussion was no longer just about breaking an ancient wall. It was a choice between preservation and discovery, between logic and the unknown. The opposition argued, this wall is an inseparable part of a World Heritage Site. Even if Jean contributed to the discovery, a mere dream cannot justify destroying such a priceless artifact. The supporters countered, the dream has already led us to a hidden passage, something science failed to uncover for centuries. If a treasure lies beyond, an untouched chamber waiting to be revealed, ignoring it would be a crime against history. The loss could amount to millions, even billions of dollars. After hours of intense debate, the final decision was made through a secret vote. The result leaned in favor of demolition. Immediately, strict documentation and preservation protocols were enforced. Every hieroglyph was photographed, copied, scanned in 3D, and archived in international conservation databases. All data was digitized to ensure nothing would be lost. Once preparations were complete, the technical team began breaking the wall. The ancient stone was so thick that even modern drills could only create a small crack, progressing mere centimeters after hours of work. The wall felt as if it had been forged by time itself. After days of painstaking effort, a tiny fissure finally appeared, revealing a pitch-black void beyond. A specialist quickly grabbed a high-powered flashlight, pressing it against the fingertip-sized gap. The beam pierced through the dust and darkness. He leaned closer, straining his eyes to see and excite in astonishment with his voice. There's an empty space. It's definitely a chamber inside. Another archaeologist added. Now I understand why modern scanning equipment couldn't detect anything. This stone block is too thick, too sealed. It perfectly shields against all signals. Excitement and anticipation filled the air. They were standing before the final doorway, not just rumors or vague dreams anymore, but a truth slowly revealing itself. Chapter 7. As soon as they confirmed that a hidden chamber truly lay behind the dense wall, the team of experts immediately reported it to high-ranking Egyptian officials. Although dismantling the wall would take time due to its exceptional thickness and hardness, the news alone was enough to excite authorities. This wasn't just a major archaeological breakthrough, it was a golden opportunity for Egypt to once again astonish the world with its mysterious pyramids. Before long, major newspapers in Cairo began reporting on Jean and his team's discovery, despite not having direct access to the site or interviews with those involved. Jean's image, hailed as the man who had guided them to the hidden treasure, was plastered across the front pages. International media quickly followed suit, with sensational headlines like, "The man led by dreams to a secret buried deep in the Great Pyramid." Egyptian authorities remained tight-lipped about what lay inside the secret chamber, further fueling the public's curiosity. People eagerly awaited the truth behind the millennia-old stone. A month later, the final stone wall was completely removed. Despite their thorough preparations, the archaeologists were still astounded by its sheer solidity, so thick that even modern scanners had failed to detect the chamber, and its removal had required an enormous effort. All eyes turned to Jean's peculiar dreams, which had somehow guided them to this moment. What once seemed like superstition had become the key to unlocking a mystery thousands of years old. As they cautiously stepped inside, they meticulously checked for potential traps. But to their surprise, there were none. Instead, the walls were covered in dense hieroglyphs. After hours of rapid translation, the experts realized that these inscriptions weren't marking a tomb, as they had expected. Instead, they detailed an inventory of the hamburger contents. Then, as their flashlights swept toward the far end of the chamber, the room fell silent. 12 high statues of black jackal-headed figures, each over 2 meters tall, stood solemnly in the vast chamber. At first, they were thought to be carved from basalt or some ancient material. But upon closer inspection, the team was stunned. Each statue was cast from pure gold and coated in a mysterious black lacquer. The chamber appeared to be a ritual treasure vault, filled with exquisite ceramic jars, gilded bows and shields, and golden chests brimming with solid gold artifacts. Even the small golden statues, barely 30 centimeters tall, were unexpectedly heavy. The water containers weren't ordinary clay vessels either. They were crafted from gold, their lids encrusted with gemstones the size of hen's eggs. The excavation site erupted into a mixture of shock, awe, and disbelief. No one had ever encountered an ancient treasure of such grandeur, a breathtaking testament to the unimaginable wealth and absolute power of a long-buried empire. Estimating the worth of the 12 solid gold jackal-headed statues alone, experts speculated their value could reach billions of US dollars. And that didn't even account for the countless other artifacts, gilded ceramics, weapons, shields, golden chests, and ritual vessels. It was an unprecedented treasure trove, rivaling the greatest archaeological legends of all time. With this earth-shattering discovery, the excavation was declared complete, marking one of the most significant archaeological expeditions of the last 21st century. Gene received the news. As he listened to the figures, the exclamations, and the international media frenzy, a heavy weight settled in his chest. Standing silently by his hotel window in Cairo, he gazed out toward the distant pyramids, their silhouettes majestic against the golden sunset. He let out a sigh. Everything, none of it belongs to me, Gene thought to himself. Even though he was the first to discover the hidden passage, even though it was his strange dreams that had guided him for months, leading him past doubts, even risking his own life to reach the secret behind the wall. Ultimately, everything belonged to the nation. The heritage of Egypt, no one was allowed to claim it. A few days later, the Cairo authorities invited him to a small ceremony where he was awarded an honorary certificate along with a symbolic reward, $20,000. Gene bowed his head in thanks, but his heart felt heavy. The check lay neatly inside the envelope, and Gene felt a wave of discomfort at Cairo's stinginess. It was as if they were wrapping up his efforts, his faith, and the burning dreams that had brought him here into a neat little package. $20,000 for a billion-dollar dream. Gene stepped out of the hall, the blazing sunlight casting long shadows over his slumped shoulders. The dream had led him here, but the road ahead had never seemed so uncertain. Standing in his hotel room, he held the envelope, a place that was neither shabby nor luxurious. The Cairo government was still covering his stay, part of their special care for the man they called a contributor to national archaeology. Yet his heart was heavy. The hum of the air conditioner filled the silence, and the dim yellow light cast a somber glow on Gene's face as he sat at the edge of the bed, still clutching the certificate and the envelope containing his official reward from the Cairo authorities. This stingy? Really? Gene smirked bitterly. A treasure worth billions, and all he got was a name briefly mentioned in the newspapers, a piece of paper, and just enough money to scrape by for a few months in Paris, where rent alone could devour most of it. He thought of his unfinished tuition fees, the student loans that had haunted him since university. Thought of his aging parents in a small town in southern France, where every euro was carefully saved. Thought of the burning dreams he once believed in, that if he achieved something great, his life would change. But in reality, he was still Gene, no fame, no fortune, no invitations from major institutions. All he had was a strange dream and a heart sinking under the weight of disappointment. He got up and walked to the window. From the high floor of the hotel, he could see the distant silhouette of the pyramids, silent keepers, hidden of ancient secrets. Gene clenched his fists, frustration and emptiness swelling inside him like an unspoken storm. If I had just kept one small antiquity, just one, would it have changed anything? The thought crossed his mind, guilty, fleeting. He pushed it away immediately, but deep down, the disappointed remained. Chapter 8. A few days later, Jean's frustration gradually subsided. The sense of injustice still lingered, but it had given way to exhaustion, disillusionment, and the cold reality awaiting him back home. He was preparing to return to France, to his old, mundane life. Back to the cramped attic infested with cockroaches and rats, where meals consisted of stale bread or near-expired canned food. No more media spotlight, no more mysterious pyramids. Just Jean, an insignificant figure lost in the grandeur of Paris, a city as magnificent as it was indifferent. Before checking out of his hotel, an urge suddenly welled up inside him. He wanted to see it one last time, the hidden treasure within the pyramid, the place that had once set his heart ablaze with an undefined longing. The site was now under strict lockdown. Tourists were no longer allowed entry. Steel fences had been erected, and armed guards were stationed everywhere. But Jean, the man the press had once called the discoverer of the treasure, still had some privileges. Some of the guards recognized him. Though his days of media attention were over, his name still carried a faint echo. They checked his documents, exchanged glances, and eventually nodded, letting him through. "He can't take anything with you," one soldier said with a knowing look. At 10 in the morning, Jean stepped inside the pyramid. The dry, stifling air enveloped him, like an embrace from the past. Experts, technicians, guards, and laborers were still working tirelessly. Shouts, machinery, and the sound of heavy objects dragging echoed through the ancient, dust-laden space. He saw them, the blackened dog-headed statues, 12 solid gold figures coated in dark paint, being carefully lifted, inch by inch. Each statue weighed several tons, requiring a great number of people to move them. Jean stood still. His heart ached. It felt as if a piece of his soul was being carried away along with those statues. Not because he wanted to own them, but because a part of his dream, a part of his life, a part of his faith was being taken from him. He remembered the thrill of uncovering the first clue, the burning excitement when his flashlight beam pierced through the darkness. Now, all of it had faded into a distant memory, wrapped in the silent sorrow of his gaze. He stepped closer and gently touched a golden urn, still covered in layers of ancient dust. It was cold, heavy, and motionless, a silent testament that no matter how much one dreamed or sacrificed, history would always belong to those in power. Jean clenched his fists and exhaled deeply. An Egyptian expert walked past, giving him a brief glance before nodding as if to offer some unspoken comfort. But Jean no longer needed words of consolation. He only wanted to etch this moment into his memory, one last time, before returning to his familiar rat hole, resuming the life he once thought his dreams had freed him from, only to be thrown back into it, as if fate itself was mocking him. Despite the dozens of laborers struggling under its weight, each movement of the dog-headed statues was painstakingly slow, as if they were shifting an entire section of the pyramid itself. Sweat poured like rain, heavy breathing echoed through the confined space, ropes strained under the immense pressure, and the worn steel sleds groaned in protest. Only one statue had been removed from the underground chambers so far. The rest remained, like ancient deities waiting for the final moment to leave their 1,000-year resting place and step into the light. But did they truly need to see the light? Jean wondered fleetingly. He walked quietly toward a statue standing in the shadowed corner of the chamber. It towered over him, its jackal head reaching far above his own. The harsh neon lights reflected off its jet-black surface, making it appear even more ominous, steeped in mystery. He stepped closer. Jean slowly reached out and pressed his hand against the statue's cold, smooth surface. The sensation was both unfamiliar and strangely intimate. It wasn't just gold. It wasn't just an artifact. It was something else, something he couldn't name, that pulled at him from deep within. The passage leading outside was narrow and winding, with uneven stone steps at varying heights. Machinery like forklifts or cranes couldn't be used here as they could at a modern construction site. The only option was manual labor and primitive sleds, making the transportation process slow and perilous. The sounds of scraping metal, strange shouts, and labored breathing filled the suffocating air of the pyramid's depths. Jean stood motionless before the jackal-headed statue. It loomed over him, 2 meters tall, its polished black surface absorbing the light like a fragment of eternal night. It radiated a solemn presence, so chilling that it made his skin crawl. He didn't know why, but his hands moved on their own, his hand pressing firmly against the cold stone. And at that precise moment, click! A faint sound echoed in his ears, like a hidden mechanism being released. The statue trembled. Jean recoiled, eyes widening in shock. What just happened? His voice came out in a hushed whisper, barely audible over the background noise. For a brief second, he thought he had imagined it. But no, he was certain. The statue had trembled ever so slightly beneath his touch. A sudden chill coursed through his body, seeping through his skin and piercing his bones. His legs went numb, frozen in place as if shackled by invisible chains. His breaths came in rapid, shallow bursts, but his chest felt unbearably heavy, as though the very air had been drained from the room. Panic-stricken, Jean darted his gaze around the chamber. The workers were still pulling, the experts still making notes and cataloging relics. No one had noticed anything. No one had seen what he just saw. Only him, had seen the statue tremble once more. And then again. The vibrations were so faint they could have been dismissed as a trick of the mind. But beneath his feet, the stone floor shuddered ever so slightly. Something inside the statue was waking up. Jean tried to lift his feet and step away, but he couldn't. It was as if something was holding him back, not ropes, not chains, but a primal fear rising from the depths of his mind, anchoring him to the spot. This isn't just a gold statue. It can't be just a statue. He swallowed hard. His hands were trembling violently. And then a faint click echoed again, clearer this time. From the base of the statue, a hairline seam appeared, too straight, too clean to be a crack in stone. It wasn't damage, it was a joint, a hidden mechanism. A shiver surged through Jean's spine. He couldn't move, a creeping certainty growing within him that something unnatural was about to happen. Something sealed away for thousands of years, and he who touched it first, might have just opened a door that should have stayed shut forever. His thoughts flashed to the jackal-headed symbol Anubis, the god of mummification, protector of the dead, guide of souls through darkness to the afterlife. A crucial figure in the ancient ritual of judgment, where the heart of the dead was weighed against a feather, determining salvation or eternal oblivion. Regret gnawed at his gut. What had he just triggered with a simple touch? A gesture so small, so innocent, yet it might have awakened a truth too ancient and terrifying for the modern world. Dark thoughts flitted across his mind. Then the statue began to shake, violently this time. The black coating, thick and tar-like, cracked and peeled away. Pieces flaked off and clattered to the stone floor. And beneath that dark shell was a blinding gleam of pure gold, not polished, not ornamental, but something alive with an eerie shimmer. Blackness and gold intertwined, giving the statue a surreal, almost divine aura, no longer a mere object, but a dormant being rousing from slumber. Then the statue's eyes opened. The neon light reflected into them, but instead of shining, they absorbed the glow completely. Eyes like twin voids, black holes that devoured light, devoured everything. Jean wanted to scream,
to turn and run fast.
But he couldn't. His legs were frozen in place. His body no longer his own. A numbing cold had crept from his heels, slithering up his spine, wrapping icy fingers around his lungs, his heart, his mind. Inside his skull, a voice, his own voice, was shrieking. Move. Run, damn it. Just move. Do something. But his body didn't listen. He stood like a statue himself, frozen by some unseen force. Around him, the air warped and thickened. Time slowed. Reality narrowed until only two things remained, him and the statue. Everything else, the shouting workers, the clattering hand truck, the flickering lights, all faded into the background as if the world itself was holding its breath. And no one noticed. Not one soul realized that something unusual was waking up in the shadows. Chapter 9. Gene's legs were stiff as stone. His whole body felt shackled in an invisible layer of icy frost. Only his mouth remained under his control. He managed to let out a desperate, guttural scream. Damn it! Run! As if yelling would somehow force his frozen body into motion. His voice tore through the silence of the underground chamber like a blade. Metal clattered. Shouts erupted. Archaeologists and workers alike spun toward him in alarm. A few froze in place, baffled, not understanding what was happening. But it was already too late. The statue of Anubis, 2 meters tall, weighing over a ton, had awakened completely. No longer an inert lump of sculpted gold. Its eyes now blazed, veins of black light seeping through the cracks of its golden body. Only this one had stirred. The 11 others remained still, asleep, waiting. Anubis raised a massive hand, black as tar, toward Gene. And it touched his head. Gene felt no pain. But he felt something far worse, his breath growing heavier, his heartbeat slowing, like a drum beating its final rhythms. Something was being pulled out of him. He saw it. His soul. A pale, transparent reflection of himself, shivering and crying, being drawn slowly from his body. No, please stop. It was Gene's voice. But only his soul screamed. His body stood frozen, wide-eyed, like a stone sculpture. And then the soul was extracted completely. The light vanished from Gene's eyes. His body collapsed to the cold stone floor, just a shell now. Lifeless. Anubis tilted its head upward, still gripping Gene's struggling spirit in one hand. Then it opened its mouth, a mouth not deep, but infinitely dark. And then it swallowed. Gene's soul slipped into that abyss like smoke, vanishing into eternal blackness. The sound was small, just a single gulp, but it echoed through the chamber like a verdict passed down from beyond death. Anubis had fed. Immediately, a stream of golden light burst from the statue's body, racing along the carved hieroglyphs on the walls. Like some ancient ritual had been rekindled after thousands of years. Screams erupted behind. A specialist shouted, "What's happening? Why did Gene fall?" Another archaeologist nearby echoed in terror. "What's going on?" "Gene, he's not moving." Panic rippled through the chamber. All eyes turned to Gene's body, motionless, eyes wide open, stone cold. No one could understand what had just happened. The neon lights reflected off the jackal-headed statue, and then everyone saw it. The statue was glowing and moving. Head turned, look around them, not from any spotlight or projection, but from within itself. The gold beneath the peeling black lacquer shimmered like golden sacred fire. Flakes of ancient paint dropped to the floor, revealing polished gold so pure it seemed to burn. The statue, no, the god, Anubis, was alive. It stepped off the stone pedestal, one heavy, thunderous stride that sent subtle tremors across the floor.